And we'll record it. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. You seem like a bit of a busy man. I'm going to turn you up a little.
Not today.
And not today. Good for you. How are things going with Just Inspire?
Things are going fairly well. Justin just got out of the hospital yesterday, so he's around for the weekend.
Oh, good. Is it picking up some steam?
Yeah. Hopefully he's bouncing back. He was kind of like my right hand man through the whole thing. So when he goes into the hospital, I'm short a pair of hands.
I see. What do you guys get up to a lot? I thought you were putting together like a not-for-profit. What was it, mentoring? I think it was.
Yeah. Essentially, we're working up through like the elementary schools and the high schools, trying to work close with the kids in the gyms in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I also just moved my manager to a different location. She was on site with me for like the last year and a half, so we're going through that transition as well.
Okay. So you work
on my dog business.
You work. Let's say that again. On the dog business.
The dog
Yeah.
business.
So are you a breeder and a trainer?
Yes. Yeah. I breed German Shepherds, mostly West German working lines. I have for almost 10 years now.
Wow, that's fantastic. I was looking at getting into that with a friend of mine that was a breeder and a trainer out of the Ukraine, but it didn't work out. I love dogs, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah. Lucas, he's cleaning his screen. How are you, sir? Wave at Lucas. Hi, Lucas. Can you hear us?
Lucas, but
he doesn't have any audio yet. There we go. So the conversation this morning around setting up the group and what we're going to do, I think we've, there we go. For at least at this stage, I think we've got a good plan going forward. Keep the group at the status that it's at. Let more people post to the public page, and my goal is to have more people representing Sheepdog than just me. And I noticed Elaine and Luke are getting reposted more and so on. So I just wanted to get some support or some formalization around that. What are your thoughts? I didn't read your last comments because I was heading out the door.
Oh, I was just making sure everyone understood what the difference between the group designations are, and I'm happy to catalog things where is most appropriate.
Okay.
So the new project that I'm undergoing with my other friends, the Truth Spasm project, we have groups broken up roughly into subjects, and we post relevant data into each of the groups for discussion, and then we pull out of the discussions anything that's worthwhile to share with the masses, I suppose, and post that on the page.
Okay, so that was actually the thing that I've been struggling with is where the discussions happen. Because what's sort of happened over the last year is I'm still doing most of the discussions on Kurt's wall. And I think it's just because there's more diversity there, more diversity of thought, and the topics are just churning out all the time, different topics every day.
Yeah.
And then if something good comes out of it, then I'll share it to the Sheepdog group. And then if there's something that's that I keep referring back to, if I keep having to look up old posts, then I'll put it on the public page because it's just easier to find and pull out from there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the discussion thing that we don't really have. And I liked what I think it was Gunther's comment that the Sheepdog group is more like just a tribal meeting, like where we're hanging out. And
right.
It's probably good to keep it that way. So we don't really have a platform for sparking up discussion. So my thinking is maybe we do that on these other platforms and then pull from that into ours, and it gives some exposure to us through these other groups, and then we can kind of archive it on the public page and keep our group just as sort of a hangout.
That sounds good. And I'll use the Sheepdog page, and I'll join groups. You can join groups as a page, like using the page as an entity.
Okay.
So depending on the structure of the group, they either allow pages to join or not, but a lot of them are, because it's a new function. So they haven't turned it off, essentially. I think it defaults to on when they change the function over. So if there's any groups that you have discussions in frequently, you can just list them, and I'll go in and I'll join them as the page.
Okay, I see. And then
you can post and emote as the page if you're in a group. You just switch your designation in the top left-hand corner to interacting as the page, as opposed to your personal profile.
Right. And then anybody that's set to an admin can do that.
Yes, anyone who's set to admin can do any of the posting and emoting as the page. So if you had a team working on a page, like, you can really get the page's reach out there as far as interaction goes, because anyone or everyone can act as the page at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And then focus on getting page likes in terms of sort of that recruitment or new blood comes out.
Yeah, I've been using the tagging function. So if you go at and then you start writing Sheepdog Democracy, it'll pull up the page as a link.
Okay.
It'll say Sheepdog Democracy, but it'll say it in that blue color that you can click on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Linking it as opposed to just writing it.
Right. Lucas, can we hear you now?
Oh yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
What have you been? I don't think we've had a conversation in like a year and a half or so, and then it was kind of minor. So what have you been up to?
I just work, man. Just keeping busy, and pretty much that's it. Just trying to stay fit, trying to work out, and stay consistent.
I am so frustrated with working out right now because this shoulder issues that I have.
Yeah, I saw that in the group.
And it's new. They're old injuries, but it's not a pain issue. I'll just reach a point where I just lose all strength in my arm if it's tweaked, which is a problem at work when you're lifting heavy things over your head to all of a sudden lose strength when you're on a ladder or something. So I've been holding off on working out because it seems to be aggravating, and it's both shoulders, different spots, but on both shoulders. So
can you hang?
Yeah, actually, I could hang from my chin-up bar.
Free hanging is good for your shoulders.
Okay, because it seems like it's the back of this shoulder and it's the front of this shoulder, and I'm finding if I keep essentially my arm directly back behind me in line with my shoulders and lean on it and rest that way, it loosens up on this shoulder. It loosens up the back of the shoulder. So yeah, I don't know if there are impingements coming up or if it's just old tendons and I need to start eating more gelatin or something. Because I've been on carnivore for 6 months. It's the bone broth is full of gelatin. And I came off that diet about 2 months ago. But I came off the diet just after the shoulder stuff came up. So kind of
what did you add back? What did you add back in? Are you on a new diet, or did you just?
No, I started eating like more vegetables again. So some cuneiform vegetables, and what else? Still, it's like pizza night with the girls on Friday night. It's like maybe once a week I'll have grains. Yeah, so I'd say that's pretty much the only thing is reintroducing. Yeah, pretty much just just vegetables and fruits and that, which was part of my plan. It wasn't about having one set diet, but having seasonal diets driven by what would normally be seasonally available. So I started introducing berries and stuff, vegetables again, because it's spring. So my year-long experiment is entering phase 2, and I'm getting a little skinny fat man belly again. Because a carnivore, you have no fat in your body when you're on carnivore. It's awesome. Anyway. So Lucas, where
Hey, can you hear my audio?
Yes, I can hear your audio.
Woo.
You get
Nice.
the tires swapped out.
That's right.
Getting rid of the winter tires?
Yeah, man, the winter tires are done for the season.
Good for you. You're one of the few people that actually puts winter tires on their car. You're a smart man.
What I figure is it's not more expensive because you're putting half as much wear on your all seasons, so it's the same really.
Yeah, it's just a matter of storage. If you have storage, it's not an issue.
Yeah, I do it at the dealership. You know, usually dealerships charge a lot, but for swapping the tires and storing them for the year and they throw in a balance, it's like $100. So
Really?
I didn't even know that.
That's cheap.
yeah, I couldn't believe they beat everyone else's price.
That's
Storing
year-long
for you?
or 6 months of storage. Well, no, it's a year because then they store your all seasons, right?
Well, no, then when you switch it back, you pay them another $100.
Oh, I see. So every 6 months. I'll have to
Yeah.
look at that.
Trying to see if there's a way I can turn off the video I'm getting from you guys because I'm not sure how long my data is going to last if I have that running.
Well, we can shut off our video too.
Mhm.
Let me go if I can figure it out. Jeez, I'm such a Luddite these days. There we go.
Cool.
Better?
There, and then you guys don't have to look at me sitting in a room full of old toilets and sinks. So I'm in the storage room right now.
Nice.
Yeah. So Elaine, you've been posting a lot more and getting shared a lot more.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I'm not too sure why.
Well, I think it's because you're coming out of your shell.
Yeah, I was kidding. Yeah, I've been, posting more. Like whenever you see like new ideas, especially like more complicated ideas, it's like not always too sure what to say about it,
True. But hashing it out, eh? Like I was talking with Michael Churchill about capital, and I don't really know anything about it. But then it ends up getting on that conversation about polyandry, right? So you never know where the stuff's going to go.
Who would you say, Paul Landry?
Polyandry. We were talking about capital and state, and but eventually the conversation ended up being about polygamy and polyandry, like the sexual selection. So I just find you never know what's going to come out of a conversation.
Yeah. Oh, polyandry. I'm getting a bit of static. I don't know if you guys are getting like lag on your end at all, or maybe it's just because of like my data connection. But yeah.
You sound clear to me.
Me too.
Yeah, same.
Okay, it's just you guys come through choppy sometimes, so that might just be like my location and data right now.
Okay.
But yeah, polyandry. I saw that post. I haven't got to dig into it yet. I have a whole bunch of links saved on my computer from stuff that you guys have been posting, but I haven't got to read because some of them are quite a bit longer.
Yeah, that was an essay in itself, and my command of the English language, my spelling is never helpful. No, what I'm finding is that because I've been watching Dutton's videos, or more like people keep throwing Dutton videos at me. This is the Jolly Heretic guy.
Yeah.
And so looking at mutant load and then looking at sexual selection strategies or mating strategies is filling in gaps, like operational gaps that biohistory didn't have. So, biohistory is focusing on epigenetics, but he's handling it almost like it's this magic sauce. Like he just says it's all epigenetics, and then he cites some of the endocrinology stuff, but he's never actually talking about gene changes, actual gene changes. Where Dutton's talking about mutation load and optimum mutation load along the same sort of patterns as biohistory. So now we've got if there is something behind the epigenetics, I don't know if it'll come out of biohistory, but if there's something, there's the epigenetic line, there's the endocrinology, there's mating strategies, shifting in dominant mating strategies, and then there's this mutant load that's a result of it. So it's flushing in gaps. And what I liked about that is it crosses over into tainter with complex systems that it's shifting the attitude towards resources from acquisition to redistribution, which can only happen once you've reached a certain degree of complexity. And then it almost ramps up the need or the demand for that complexity until it implodes on itself.
Yeah, that seems to be the natural cycle of things. I think what's putting it off or delaying it is the fact that we've complicated the complex systems that we have by overlaying what we've overlaid, culture and technology and all this.
Can you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, well, it's harder. I think the reason that people are quick to jump on the epigenetic train as though it's like a savior science, humans are infinitely malleable, is because we're experiencing quicker changes than before due to technological insertion. There isn't any way I'd be able to learn all the things that I learned had I been born 100 years ago.
Right.
We're at a point where I don't know if we were designed to take in like all this information abstractly and then attempt to puzzle it together in a way that seems to contradict the natural flow of things.
Yes. This ties back into something I was thinking about.
I think
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying the informational overload. I would agree with that, and that's sort of where stoicism and the stress response comes in. So, if we have, a healthy stress response, we aren't going to be overloaded by the information. And if we're only focusing on what's within our own domain of control, that's stoicism, not getting distracted by, you're already seeing the worst stuff on the nightly news, like whatever is the bad stuff, what they report on.
It's become necessary to be a competent stoic to make it through the world unscathed.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and it was thinking about the Beautiful Ones and the latest paper that came out on the Beautiful Ones with Rat City, and saying that what was driving, and they were saying it was epistasis, what was driving the change in the population of mice was the pheromones in the urine from the Beautiful Ones was so overpowering, the other mice couldn't pick up the signals as to whether a territory had been marked by a neighbor or not. So then they just end up marking everything all the time, and that ramps up their stress, and then their behavior changes. And I was thinking about that, is that information for humans is like mice pee.
Yeah, so, boundaries.
Yeah, and that the signaling for us might be information in itself, like signaling, social signaling, and so on, but information. And information overload or corrupted information or ambiguous information could be acting like urine from the beautiful ones.
Yeah, distracting you from seeing
Or-
actual territories.
Sorry,
And
what?
Yeah, exactly. That it ambiguates. I keep going back to it, but it makes things ambiguous when what we need is our straight.
it obscures or misdirects you.
Mm-hmm. So, and then that having an effect on overall or underlying stress, like baseline stress, something that we would probably not notice day to day, which then has an endocrinology effect, which, and then so all of these things start tying together.
Yeah, it's certainly a closed system.
Yeah, and if anything, it's like nature doesn't want us to be too successful.
Yeah, it wouldn't be able to temper us back.
Right. So,
Well, it doesn't want us to be too successful if we're misusing that. If you go in like to the role of stewardship and keep things in order, that's what we were looking at on they go.
Well, life's strategy is diversity. It's a diversity of approaches to life itself. The collection of information, and humans life fights back against us because of that. It's looking to have the most chances at doing whatever it is it does. We're just one of those chances.
Right. Life doesn't care whether you're alive. Life cares that life continues somewhere.
Yes.
And
What cares? Axes, though.
Yeah. Axes, though. Yeah.
audio dead air. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit.
Yeah, he was bouncing in and out for me too, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. What was my other thought there? Is there a distinction between diversity and variation?
I'm not sure if there's a distinction between diversity from this frame. I'm not sure if there's a difference between diversity and entropy, the ability to be anything, or multiple, the ability to change into the most number of things.
Okay. And then, in terms of a biological equivalent of that would be mutation load, because that's essentially what's happening with mutations is seeking adaptation. Some of them reduce adaptations, like some adaptations are lost through mutant load,
right.
Others possibly increase. So
now I'm not sure. It's way beyond my true scope of knowledge, but I'm not sure if mutation, knowing that it's the environment that turns, say, on and off gene expression. I'm not sure that mutation is the right word. It's like the genes adapt to what's going on, or they try another variable because what's happening now isn't working.
Right. Well, what I'm wondering is if what we're calling civilizational cycles are actual adaptation cycles, where an adaptation will come, it'll stabilize, and then that increases benefit, which then increases diversity, which is an increase in mutation load, to reintroduce new possible adaptations. So you get this explosion.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So that maybe that's what's at play here is we're at a point now where we're ramping up diversity through dysgenics and other things, because the next great adaptation might come out of that.
We would hope, I suppose. It just appears that it's not.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what Dutton was getting at, is that there's an equilibrium or an optimum range where how did I have it in the article? It was based on IQ. A lower IQ results in higher religiousness. and you can be too religious. So he uses the example of snake charmers down south, where the religion is actually inhibiting. But overall, what it does is it selects for behaviors that would raise IQ over time. And then as the IQ raises, prosperity raises, and all of these temperamental shifts happen, so we turn to a more open or liberal state. Then you get the opposite. You get this mutation load that's associated with higher IQ, and those shifts in temperament seem to be anti-adaptive. So he'll talk about geniuses. European strategy is a genius strategy. We're less kin-driven than most other cultures, but because of that, we have this near breeding that produces a lot of geniuses. That the geniuses will start questioning the very things that have been proven to keep us going. And that questioning is good on one hand because it leads to more adaptation, but it can undermine the things that have worked in the past. So he's talking about this mutant load on the right-hand tail starts to undermine survival rather than encourage it. So there's somewhere in the middle of this mutant load that seems to be the optimum range.
Bill, can you say that again in another way and shorten it up?
Okay, let me see if I can say that in another way. Okay, so mutation load on the left end tail associated with lower IQ tends to restrict adaptation opportunities. But the behavior associated with it incrementally increases IQ, which incrementally increases the conditions for increasing IQ until we reach the right-hand tail, where the mutant load tends to now it's preserved the opportunity, or it's increased the opportunity for adaptation, but now it starts to undermine previously gained adaptations. So on the left, it's too rigid in terms of old adaptive strategies that have worked, and there's no opportunity for changing to the.
Can you make that group that you're describing concrete? Who acts as those people now?
So I would say that would be sort of the Middle East and the high, like Muslims and so on, where it's theocracy and it's religion, and it's almost too conservative and too traditional in its views.
Understood. Yeah, that makes it crystal clear.
And then we're at the opposite end, where we're so loose on our traditions that we're actually undermining the things that have worked for us in the past.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And then you get
yes,
something like Japan in the middle, or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, that makes that seems to mesh properly.
Yeah. Okay, but I have to admit I know nothing about biology. So I'm repeating things that I've heard from Dutton and that, but I actually have no understanding at all of how this stuff works on a biological level.
I feel we all work in the kind of the same fashion. It's like if some expert says it, I assume we can work that position out to its logical ends. And given what it is we do and how much of it we do, we're tailor fitted for making leaps across domains like that.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I don't like patting myself on the back. I don't even like when other people pat me on the back. We have so much work to do that pats on the back are counterproductive.
Yeah.
We should be telling people when they're making huge mistakes, not every time they do something, just okay. But there needs to be more people that I get behind you guys, because there needs to be more people like you moving through the world. Most people are just taking this place as it comes, and it's coming way too fast and hard for them to do anything constructive about it.
Right. Yeah, and I think given the current situation and the speed behind it is an incentive to move into a stereotype And the stereotypes that we have politically in the landscape right now are not constructive at all.
Yeah, we have to draw lines, because there's no, if we leave the system open, it's just going, it's going to chaos. It's entropic in its very nature, this individualistic, you can be whatever you want type of attitude that we have. And it's nihilistic at its core.
Mm-hmm.
We can.
And here's some irony that I've been laughing to myself about, is that we associate diversity and the downside of it with the left. But when you look at the behavior on the right, where it's constant atomization and bickering between factions, they're actually exhibiting what the behavior of that downside is.
Oh, yeah, it's the same thing way at the ends, at the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They both become hyper atomistic.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right, because it is happening on the left as well.
Yeah. The victim groups keep getting smaller. Well, as you add a label, you cast out quite a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And they can both have negative conceptions of a collective too. So it's almost like it's the same problem across the board. It just takes a different form depending on where your political and temperament biases are.
Well, would a solution then be these group definitions via negativa? I mean, that's the same dynamic that we're talking about when we're talking about pursuit of goods and morality, where law restricts anything that's bad but doesn't prescribe the good. Would negativa be a similar solution for group identity?
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. These are all the things we're not.
That
and
we're not.
You're able to be any permeation of the things that are not.
Okay, so what are we not?
What are we not? We're not individual agents acting of our own accord to the end of just ourselves.
and we're not acting in a way that violates reciprocity or tolerating actions that violate reciprocity.
Not irreciprocal. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not. So we're not irreciprocal. We're not Brandon.
Atomistic.
Atomistic.
I don't know if that's a word, but it's good enough.
I make up my own words all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a certain level of individualism is good. What we need to do is so that we can apply. Yeah, we have to apply the negative law, and we have to figure out where it's crossing that line and starting to impose costs on third parties, and then we need to like separate from people doing that, defend ourselves, whatever is available.
So we're not prescriptive, and well, that's too vague. Thinking that because we're not prescriptive, we're not suppressing the individual.
Yeah, well, we're prescriptive. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I'm certainly going to steer you in a direction that I think is maximally beneficial.
Well, we're all prescriptive. I don't think you can help but be, but you have to do it in such a way where the prescription is admitted as like a suggestion or a bias, and that's differentiated from the law, which would be the conditions that have to be followed in order to continue surviving as an individual or a group.
Okay, but is that a matter of scale, where personally we can be prescriptive? We all have our preferences, but as
that's what it is. It's making sure when you're relaying a preference that it's noted as such. I would prefer this.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a group,
yeah.
Does that mean that we're prescriptive?
Good question.
I'm not sure.
See, I'm not sure either, because I think that there are For me, anyways,
Okay.
there are positive definitions. Yeah.
What are we prescriptive about as a group? I assume you mean the Sheepdog group.
Yeah.
So I would assume we're prescriptive about what going with the flow of biology, nature, or understanding the underlying biomechanics behind interactions between people and groups. We'd say going against your own biology is probably counterproductive.
Right. And then further to that, I'd say that we're pro-family, or I want to say familial because it's not necessarily having a biological family. That's a prescriptive element.
Yes.
Yeah, I see most of that as negativa because those are requirements to continue on as a group to continue to exist. So once you stop doing that, you're falling out of, productive and reciprocal relationships.
Right. Yes, because when I look at the sort of epistemic or philosophical structure behind these preferences that come out of our group, they're very similar to classical liberals.
Yeah.
But they're not, in terms of its content, it's not identical. Which was, well, I'm thinking Stuart Mill right now, which really was that the good is undefined and we only limit the bad.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that was Mill. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And then because he talked about the social experiment, when people are free to pursue their own conception of the good, you have the most production of the good. But that can only occur when you restrict the bad.
And that is anti-fragility.
Yeah. And then, specifically it's apophasis, but Kurt always calls it negativa, so I've adopted that term. Good is anything that's not bad would be in philosophy apophasis, defining something by what it's not. Okay,
Yeah.
but within the group itself, I think that there are variations of preferences that none of us have issues that there's variations of, but we're still all dogs, right? So we have, we have gay members, we have people that are very self-reliant, we have people that are very libertarian to the point of a functioning anarchy on one hand, and then we have people that are very ordered and very strict on the other. And nobody seems to have an issue with anybody else within the group. You don't see any of those conflicts. So is that because what we do agree on is the negativa, the apophasis definitions?
That seems to be the case.
Okay.
And that lets us chase down like all those different goods. Like we can benefit from everybody's different conception of good. And then this is where you get back into like diversity and adaptability, because you can go in so many different directions as long as you outlaw the bad.
Right. And
it allows for the most plausible iterations of life to define good by what is only define what's bad and leave the good.
Doesn't this tie back to what we were just talking about?
Yes.
With the ranges of mutant load? So what we've just talked about is really about constraining to the middle of that mutation load.
Yeah, it seems like it works in the same type of complex way.
Right. So that affording for the most amount of adaptability, but not to the degree that it undermines survival.
Yes.
Okay. So I would say most of our negativa or apophasis definitions are 90% proprietarian, with the exception of that, these cold, hard calculating leaders or elites. I think that's where we differ, that we want to constrain on power.
Yeah, isn't that built into proprietarianism as well, though? Because it's showing how if the leader steps out of reciprocity, it dissolves their society or creates a rebellion.
Well, there's the descriptive side of that, but so when I started Sheepdog, it was because I didn't find anything that was intrinsic within the system. So the checks and balances against the elites were other elites, and that's the problem. The rest of us, what it came down to is the rest of us would follow a leader just because they said, trust me. And that, as far as I was concerned, that wasn't good enough. There needed to be some operational understanding why there needed to be limits to power. Now, I don't think that Kurt is arguing for limitless power. I think that this system in a generation or two could be used to argue for a limitless power. And that was my issue. So for me, that was where the Sheepdog came in, that if your concept stack is based on conquering others, which is those conversations with Kurt at the time was about that, where sovereignty is by establishing dominance of violence, which you can then do whatever you want with. But it makes the most sense to use it to have people be productive, therefore rule of law. Where I was saying, no, there's another side of it, and that's the people that are defending against this. There's something there that they're defending, and that's their self-determination, their autonomy. So when they've established a dominance of violence, what they've done is they've preserved autonomy. Therefore, there's an intrinsic definition to the limits of that power, which is that it should only be used in the defense of that